It was a chilly night in October, one of those nights where the air bites at your skin, and the streets feel just a little too quiet. College campuses are usually buzzing, even after dark. There are always students lingering in hallways, laughter spilling out from dorms, or the faint sound of music somewhere in the distance. But on this night, the sidewalks were nearly empty. And on one of those sidewalks, just off campus, along a stretch of road lit by broken streetlights, walked a young woman named Emily Carter. Emily was a 21-year-old college student, loved by her classmates, adored by her family, and known to everyone as the kind of person who always had time for others. She had a quick smile, a contagious laugh, and a way of making people feel like they mattered. Her friends often joked that Emily was the mom of the group. She made sure everyone got home safe after parties, she reminded people about deadlines, and she'd even bring soup to someone who was sick. But on this night, no one was there to walk her home. Surveillance cameras captured her leaving the campus library at exactly 11:48 p.m. She had stayed late studying for an exam she was nervous about. A camera mounted above the library doors showed her stepping into the night, tugging her jacket closer around her shoulders. She wasn't in a hurry, but she wasn't wandering either. She looked like a young woman who knew where she was going. She was walking home. It was a short, familiar walk, just 12 minutes from the library to her off-campus apartment. Emily had taken that same route dozens of times. Safe, predictable, nothing unusual about it. But here's where things take a sharp, chilling turn. Because even though the cameras saw her start that walk, she never arrived home. Not that night. Not ever. Her phone stopped pinging after 11:57 p.m., just 9 minutes into her 12-minute walk. No calls. No texts. No signals. Her apartment door remained locked from the inside, her room exactly as she left it. And the last piece of her anyone would ever see, the last image her family, her friends, and eventually, millions of strangers would stare at in disbelief, was a grainy camera frame of her walking alone under a flickering streetlight, seconds before she disappeared into the dark. Before we go further into Emily's terrifying story, pause for just 1 second. If stories like this, true crime mysteries that chill you, that make you question how something so ordinary can turn into something so unexplainable, pull you in the way they pull us in, then hit subscribe right now, drop a like, and share this with someone who loves diving into mysteries. Because this one is going to stick with you. Now, back to Emily. To understand the full weight of her disappearance, you have to know Emily's world. She wasn't just another name in a headline. She wasn't just another missing face on a flyer. She was someone real, with real connections, and a life that mattered. Emily was the youngest of 3 children, raised in a small town before she moved to the city for college. Her parents, Mark and Linda, described her as fiercely independent but deeply caring. Her older brother, Daniel, said she was his best friend, even though they fought like cats and dogs growing up. Her sister, Rachel, said Emily was the one who kept the family grounded, always texting reminders about birthdays or family dinners. She wasn't reckless. She wasn't naive. She was smart, street smart, book smart, and cautious. That's what made her disappearance feel impossible. Because how does a young woman, who's doing everything right, vanish on a walk she's done 100 times before? The hours immediately following her disappearance were filled with confusion. At first, no one panicked. When her roommate, Claire, woke up the next morning and saw Emily's bed untouched, she assumed Emily had crashed at a friend's place after studying too late. It wasn't unusual for students to crash on couches when things ran late. But by noon the next day, when Emily hadn't shown up to class, Claire's concern turned into dread. Emily was never late. Never. She was the kind of student who sat in the front row, took meticulous notes, and asked thoughtful questions. Missing class wasn't just out of character, it was unthinkable. Claire tried calling her. No answer. Texting her. No reply. She checked Emily's social media. Nothing new. By early evening, she contacted Emily's family. And that's when everything shifted from worry to panic. Her father's voice broke as he later recounted that moment. When Claire called and said Emily hadn't come home. "I just knew. I knew something was wrong. She wouldn't do that. She wouldn't just not come home." Within hours, the family filed a missing persons report. Police began piecing together Emily's last known movements. They gathered camera footage from the library, nearby intersections, and businesses along her route home. And what they saw was both reassuring and chilling. Emily was there. Clear as day. Walking confidently. Looking down at her phone at one point. Adjusting her backpack strap. Normal. Routine. Familiar. And then, at 11:55 p.m., she walked past a corner convenience store. The last working streetlight illuminated her for a brief second before she disappeared down a side street. By 11:57 p.m., her phone went dark. And after that, nothing. That nothingness, the sudden, inexplicable silence, is what has haunted this case for years. Because people don't just vanish. Not without a trace. Not on a street they know like the back of their hand. Not with cameras rolling. Unless someone made them vanish. And the deeper investigators dug, the stranger and more unsettling this story became. Because while the cameras didn't capture her vanishing act directly, what they did capture in the shadows around her walk was something no one can explain. Something that suggests Emily wasn't alone that night. Something that suggests someone, or something, was following her. The investigation begins. When the police first received the call about Emily Carter's disappearance, it didn't immediately trigger alarm bells. College students, especially ones living off campus, sometimes disappeared for a night or two. Maybe she'd gone to visit a friend. Maybe she had decided to stay at someone's dorm after studying late. But her family was insistent Emily was not like that. She was responsible. She checked in. She always let people know where she was going. She was glued to her phone. If not texting her friends, she was sending updates to her sister or commenting on classmates' posts. For her to go completely silent overnight was not just unusual, it was alarming. By the 48-hour mark, the case had escalated from possible runaway to active missing person investigation. Tracking the last steps. The first priority was obvious: retrace her last known steps. Investigators started at the library. They pulled the surveillance footage of her leaving at 11:48 p.m. Her phone records confirmed she had texted her roommate, Claire, just before leaving. "On my way back. Should be there in 10. That text never got a reply. Claire was already asleep. From the library, detectives pieced together Emily's walk block by block. They requested security footage from every building along the way. And for a while, it looked like an easy path to follow. 11:49 p.m., a bank camera picked her up, walking past quickly, looking straight ahead. 11:51 p.m., a fast food restaurant camera caught her reflection in the glass as she passed. 11:53 p.m., a bus stop camera showed her waiting briefly at the crosswalk before moving forward. 11:55 p.m., the corner convenience store camera filmed her passing under the last working streetlight. She looked fine. Focused. Calm. No one beside her. No one behind her. But that was the last clear footage. The final 2 minutes of her walk, the short distance from the convenience store to her apartment, were a blind spot. No cameras. Just a dark stretch of road lined with trees and old houses. And that was where she vanished. The phone mystery. If the cameras didn't show what happened, maybe her phone would. Investigators subpoenaed her phone records. At 11:56 p.m., her phone pinged off a cell tower near the convenience store. A minute later, 11:57 p.m., the signal abruptly stopped. No more pings. No slow drift as though the phone was dying. No signs of movement toward another tower. Just silence. Experts explain this could mean one of three things. 1. Her phone had been turned off manually. 2. The battery had been physically removed. 3. The phone had been destroyed or disabled. But here's the thing, Emily's phone was new. Fully charged. She had plugged it in at the library before leaving, and her roommate confirmed she was almost obsessive about keeping it charged. The battery explanation didn't fit. So that left the darker possibility, someone else had shut it off. Interviews and suspicions. The next step was to talk to everyone close to Emily. Friends, professors, family, classmates, anyone she might have had conflict with. Her roommate Claire was the first. She told police that Emily had been stressed but excited. She had an exam coming up, but she'd been in good spirits. No boyfriends. No recent fights. No signs she wanted to disappear. Her professors described her as disciplined, sharp, one of the top students in her year. Her parents broke down describing the last phone call they'd had with her, just the day before. She told her mom she couldn't wait to come home for Thanksgiving. Her dad said she had been laughing, asking about her brother's new job. Nothing seemed out of place. But when investigators spoke to her classmates, one name kept surfacing. A young man named Tyler Green. Tyler was a fellow student. Not a close friend, but someone Emily knew from study groups. Several students mentioned that Tyler seemed a little too interested in Emily. He was known for hovering around her in the library, sitting at her table even when not invited, and once offering to walk her home, a gesture Emily politely declined. When police interviewed him, Tyler admitted he liked Emily, but insisted he had nothing to do with her disappearance. He said he hadn't seen her that night. His alibi was that he was in his dorm room playing video games with a friend. The friend backed up his story, though his timeline of events seemed fuzzy. Tyler's name was never cleared, but there was no evidence tying him directly to Emily's last walk. And besides, there was another, even more unsettling lead. The shadow. When investigators reviewed the surveillance footage again, frame by frame, they noticed something they had missed the first time. At 11:55 p.m., as Emily passed the corner convenience store, the camera captured more than just her. In the far left of the frame, almost hidden in the darkness, was a shadowy figure. Not close enough to be walking with her. Not right behind her. But far enough back that it seemed like they were following. The figure appeared in only 2 frames, just seconds apart, before disappearing into darkness. When detectives enhanced the footage, the figure's outline became clear. Broad shoulders. Hooded sweatshirt. Walking the same direction as Emily. And the timing was chilling. Because that figure disappeared from the frame right when Emily's phone shut off. Public outcry. By this point, Emily's story had gone public. Flyers went up around campus. News stations covered the story. Social media exploded with theories. Some insisted she had been kidnapped. Some whispered about a stalker. Others suggested something stranger. Was there a serial predator targeting students? The university was thrown into chaos. Students demanded more campus security. Parents called in, terrified for their own children. For the first time in years, the campus didn't feel safe. And then, just when hope was beginning to fade, investigators found something. Something left behind on the very street Emily had vanished. Something that changed everything. The street of vanishing. 2 days after Emily Carter vanished, detectives returned to the quiet residential street where her signal had gone dark. It was early morning, mist hanging low, the kind of heavy fog that makes even familiar places look strange. The street was lined with old houses, most with their blinds drawn. A few porch lights flickered dimly, but otherwise, the area was silent. No students walking. No neighbors outside. Just the eerie stillness of a place holding its breath. The officers moved slowly, methodically. They weren't just looking, they were feeling, trying to sense where the ordinary ended and where something wrong had begun. And then, about 50 feet past the last known camera sighting, one officer noticed something half-hidden near the curb. It was a notebook. At first glance, it looked ordinary, just a spiral-bound college notebook, the kind you'd see in any backpack. The cover was damp from dew, the edges smudged with dirt. But when the officer picked it up, the air seemed to shift. Because written on the inside cover, in neat handwriting, was the name: Emily Carter. The first tangible piece of evidence tied directly to her. The notebook contained pages of class notes, psychology terms, highlighted passages, doodles in the margins. But the last page was different. The writing there was hurried, almost frantic. Scrawled at the bottom were 3 words, underlined twice. Not alone anymore. That was it. No explanation. No context. Just that chilling phrase. What did it mean? Investigators couldn't ignore the timing. The notebook was found exactly along her walking route, in the same stretch where her phone had gone silent. Had Emily dropped it during a struggle? Had she thrown it, hoping someone would find it? Or had the notebook been placed there later, as a message? The note at the end only deepened the mystery. Not alone anymore. Was it a cryptic message Emily had written before she vanished? Was she meeting someone? Or was it a sign that she realized, too late, that someone was following her? The neighbors. Police canvassed the neighborhood, knocking on doors, asking if anyone had seen or heard anything unusual that night. Most neighbors shook their heads. A few mentioned hearing distant footsteps, but nothing more. One woman claimed she saw a figure standing under the streetlight around midnight, just watching. She assumed it was a student, maybe waiting for a ride. She didn't report it because, at the time, it seemed unremarkable. But her description chilled investigators. She said the figure wore a hooded sweatshirt. The same details seen in the grainy footage, the shadowy figure walking behind Emily. The first break, or the first trap? Word of the notebook spread quickly. The media latched onto the phrase "not alone anymore" like it was a riddle. Was it a cry for help? A code? A warning? The public started speculating wildly. Some believed Emily had uncovered a stalker. Others thought it pointed to someone she knew, a boyfriend or a friend who had turned sinister. A smaller, stranger camp whispered about cults, secret societies, or even paranormal explanations. But detectives stayed grounded. They had something physical now. Something to analyze. Forensics teams dusted the notebook for prints. Dozens of smudges were found, but most belonged to Emily. A few partials were inconclusive. And then came something stranger, traces of a dark residue along the notebook's edges. Lab tests revealed it wasn't dirt, as first assumed, it was ash. Burnt material. But there had been no fires reported in the area that night. Family in the dark. As all this unfolded, Emily's family was spiraling. Her mother, Linda, refused to sleep in her bed. She stayed awake, sitting by her phone, convinced Emily might call. Her father, Mark, went on local television, begging for her safe return. "Please," he said, his voice cracking. "If you have her, if you know where she is, let her come home. She's our daughter. She doesn't deserve this." The family clung to hope, but privately, detectives knew something darker was unfolding. The notebook wasn't a sign of someone who had chosen to disappear. It was a sign of someone taken. Expanding the search. With the discovery of the notebook, police widened their search grid. They combed alleys, searched dumpsters, drained a nearby creek. Cadaver dogs were brought in. For 2 nights straight, they swept the area. At one point, one of the dogs alerted near a storm drain, but when officers opened it, they found nothing but stagnant water and trash. The frustration grew. Every lead seemed to end in silence. And then, another clue surfaced. The backpack. For days after Emily vanished, a maintenance worker found something stuffed behind a row of garbage bins 2 streets over. It was Emily's backpack. Inside were her textbooks, a half-empty water bottle, and her wallet, cash untouched, ID still there. But her phone was missing. And once again, there was a strange detail. The zipper of the bag had been cut clean through, as though with a sharp blade. Not torn. Not broken from use. Cut. Who would slice open a backpack and then hide it? The wrong direction. The placement of the backpack didn't make sense. It was found in the opposite direction of her apartment. If Emily had been walking home, why would her belongings end up there? Did her abductor double back? Was the bag planted to confuse investigators? Or had Emily herself tried to leave a trail? Pressure mounts. The city was on edge now. Parents refused to let their kids walk alone at night. Students banded together, creating buddy systems. Flyers with Emily's face stared from every pole, every shop window. And the police were under fire. The media demanded answers. The public demanded safety. And Emily's family demanded action. Every hour that passed without a breakthrough felt heavier. But behind closed doors, detectives admitted something that chilled even them. The evidence so far, the notebook, the backpack, the shadowy figure, it all pointed to one thing. Whoever took Emily wasn't sloppy. They weren't impulsive. They were deliberate. Careful. Methodical. This wasn't random. And if that was true, then Emily might not have been their first victim. The pattern. By the end of the first week, the city was no longer treating Emily Carter's disappearance as just another missing student case. This wasn't a runaway. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was something calculated. Something dangerous. And then, detectives uncovered something that made the ground beneath their feet shift. Emily wasn't the first. The forgotten case. A retired detective, now working cold cases, walked into the precinct after seeing Emily's story on the news. He asked the lead investigator a question that sent chills down everyone's spine. "Doesn't this sound familiar to you?" The retired officer dug into his files and produced a folder from 6 years earlier. It contained details of another missing young woman, Lena Martinez, age 20. Lena had disappeared under eerily similar circumstances. She was walking home at night from a study group. She was last seen on camera near a convenience store. Her phone went dark suddenly. Her backpack was later found discarded, intact, with personal belongings inside. Her case had gone cold. No leads. No suspect. No trace. And now, 6 years later, Emily had vanished under almost the exact same conditions, in almost the exact same area. Coincidence? Or a pattern? A chilling realization. Detectives began cross-referencing other missing persons reports within the last decade. To their horror, they discovered 3 additional disappearances that fit the same haunting mold. Case number 1, Lena Martinez, 20, vanished 6 years ago. Never found. Case number 2, a graduate student, last seen leaving campus late at night, 4 years ago. Case unsolved. Case number 3, a young woman who vanished 2 years ago after leaving her friend's apartment at night. Belongings later found, phone dead. Each case was nearly identical, young, female, college-aged, walking alone at night, last spotted by surveillance, and then gone. Suddenly, Emily's disappearance wasn't an isolated tragedy. It was part of something much bigger. Something systematic. Something predatory. The stalker theory. The notebook entry, "Not alone anymore," took on new weight. Maybe Emily had realized what the others never did. Maybe she sensed someone had been following her, just out of sight, waiting for the perfect moment. Detectives began to theorize they weren't dealing with a kidnapper acting on impulse. They were looking for a stalker. Someone patient, organized, and experienced. Someone who had done this before and perfected their method. And the worst part? That meant Emily might have been watched for weeks. Maybe even months. The idea of it sent waves of fear through the campus. Students began reporting every suspicious glance, every unfamiliar car parked near dorms, every shadow they thought lingered too long. But paranoia wasn't enough to stop what had already been set in motion. Tyler under pressure. As the theory of a stalker spread, attention shifted back to Tyler Green, the classmate with an interest in Emily. Detectives interrogated him again, this time pressing harder. "Where were you at 11:57 p.m. the night Emily vanished?" Tyler repeated his story. He was in his dorm, playing video games with a friend. But when investigators interviewed the friend separately, cracks began to show. The friend admitted he wasn't sure what time Tyler had arrived. Maybe it was 10 p.m. Maybe closer to midnight. He couldn't remember exactly. It wasn't enough to charge him, but it was enough to cast doubt. And then came another unsettling detail. Tyler's phone records showed that he, too, had been near the convenience store around the time Emily walked by. When confronted, Tyler claimed it was a coincidence. He said he often stopped by that store for snacks at night. He denied following Emily. He denied everything. But the overlap was impossible to ignore. Was Tyler just in the wrong place at the wrong time? Or was he the shadow in the footage? The family's pain. While investigators scrambled for answers, Emily's family was unraveling. Her sister Rachel posted a desperate plea on social media. "If anyone knows anything, even the smallest thing, please come forward. Emily is not just a face on a poster. She's my sister. She's my best friend. She's everything." The post went viral, spreading far beyond their city. Strangers across the country began sharing Emily's story, determined to keep her face in the public eye. Her parents, meanwhile, sat for interviews, their voices breaking under the weight of uncertainty. Her mother said, "Every time the phone rings, my heart stops. I hope it's her. I pray it's her. But it never is." That raw, unfiltered grief struck a chord with millions watching at home. If you're still here, still watching, I want to pause for just 1 second. This is where stories like Emily's matter most. Because the difference between a case that fades into silence and one that gets solved often comes down to attention. Awareness. People caring enough not to forget. So if you haven't already, hit subscribe right now. Share this story. Leave a comment for Emily and her family. Every voice helps keep the spotlight burning. And in cases like this, spotlight means pressure, and pressure means answers. Now, back to the investigation. The cryptic detail. Forensics finally returned results on Emily's backpack. Along with the strange, deliberate cut in the zipper, they found fibers that didn't match her clothing. Dark, synthetic fibers. Possibly from a car interior. This suggested one thing: Emily might have been forced into a vehicle. And if that was true, then whoever took her had planned ahead. They knew where the cameras stopped. They knew the blind spots. They knew when to strike. It was a terrifying thought. Because that level of preparation didn't point to someone clumsy or impulsive. It pointed to someone who was hunting. The silence before the storm. Days turned into weeks. Leads dried up. The family grew desperate. The city grew restless. And for a moment, it seemed like the case might go the same way as Lena's, and the others before her: cold, forgotten, unresolved. But then, almost 2 weeks after Emily vanished, the investigation was jolted awake. A man walking his dog through a wooded trail just outside the city stumbled upon something that made his blood run cold. Something that tied Emily's case to the others more directly than ever before. And something that suggested the predator at the heart of this wasn't done yet. The woods. It was a gray, overcast morning when the call came in. A man named Robert Willis, an early riser who walked his German Shepherd every day before work, was cutting through a wooded trail on the edge of town. It was the kind of place joggers and dog walkers frequented, about 2 miles from the campus. The trail was damp from overnight rain, branches dripping water, the smell of wet leaves heavy in the air. Robert's dog, usually calm, suddenly froze. Its ears pricked forward. Then it pulled hard on the leash, dragging him off the main path and into the brush. At first, Robert thought it was chasing a squirrel. But as the dog nosed through the undergrowth, Robert saw something lying half buried under leaves. Something man-made. He bent down, brushed the debris aside, and his heart dropped. It was a shoe. Not just any shoe. A women's sneaker, small, worn, with the laces double knotted. and written in faded marker on the inside tongue was a name: Emily Carter. The shoe. Police swarmed the area within the hour. The shoe was collected carefully, bagged, photographed. But what unsettled them wasn't just finding it, it was where it was found. Because the woods were miles away from the last place Emily was seen. She had no reason to be there. No classes, no friends in the area, nothing to connect her. Which meant one thing: someone had brought her there. Expanding the search. For the next 3 days, the woods became a hive of activity. Search teams combed every inch. Cadaver dogs were deployed again. Drones scanned from above. And slowly, more items surfaced. A torn piece of fabric, consistent with Emily's jacket. A hair tie that matched one her roommate said she owned. And then, worst of all, another backpack. But this one didn't belong to Emily. Inside were notebooks, ID cards, and personal belongings belonging to Lena Martinez, the young woman who had vanished 6 years earlier. The connection was undeniable now. Emily's case wasn't just similar to Lena's. It was linked. The pattern deepens. Detectives sat in stunned silence as they laid out the evidence side by side. Emily's belongings. Lena's belongings. Both dumped in the same stretch of woods, years apart. This wasn't chance. This wasn't sloppy criminals discarding items. This was a dump site. And that realization carried a horrifying implication. If the woods were a dump site, then maybe there was more buried there. Maybe there were bodies. The search intensifies. Excavation teams were brought in. They dug systematically, working long hours. Every overturned shovel of dirt felt heavy with dread. At one point, dogs alerted near a shallow depression. Everyone held their breath as officers dug carefully. But what they uncovered wasn't human remains. It was a burned pile of books. Charred, blackened textbooks and notebooks, melted pens, scorched binders. Items that could have belonged to any number of students. Someone had been burning evidence. And the ashes matched the strange residue found on Emily's notebook. Suddenly, the phrase "not alone anymore" became even more chilling. Had Emily seen the person following her? Had she realized she was about to become part of a pattern she didn't even know existed? Tyler again. Meanwhile, suspicion against Tyler Green grew. His phone placing him near the convenience store was damning enough. But now, investigators discovered something else. He had visited the wooded trail multiple times in the weeks leading up to Emily's disappearance. When confronted, Tyler said he liked the job there. But surveillance footage from a trail camera showed him walking alone, late at night, no jogging gear, no dog, no reason to be there. Detectives leaned hard. Were you following Emily that night? Did you take her into those woods? Tyler denied it, again and again. But his explanations grew thinner, shakier. And yet, there was still no physical evidence tying him directly to Emily. No DNA. No fingerprints. Nothing solid enough to make an arrest. Fear spreads. As news of the woods broke, fear gripped the campus like a vice. Students stopped going out after dark. The library emptied before 9 p.m. Jogging trails were abandoned. Parents pulled their kids out of classes mid-semester. Professors requested police escorts to their cars. The city felt haunted, not by ghosts, but by the knowledge that someone was out there, watching, waiting, hunting. And if they had done this before, they could do it again. The family's anguish. For Emily's family, the discovery was both hope and heartbreak. Hope, because her belongings proved investigators were on the right trail. Heartbreak, because every item felt like a breadcrumb leading closer not to rescue, but to tragedy. Her father told reporters, "Finding her things doesn't bring her back. It just makes me wonder how much she went through. What she saw. If she was scared." Her mother couldn't bear to look at the shoe. She said it was the same pair Emily had worn home the last time she visited. She remembered teasing her about how worn out they were, telling her she should buy a new pair. That memory now felt like a knife twisting deeper. Warning, let me pause here for a moment. Stories like this are brutal, not just because of the fear they create, but because of the families left behind, torn apart by the unknown. If you're watching this and you feel the weight of Emily's story, do something with it. Share this video. Spread her name. Keep the focus alive. Because silence is what predators count on. And attention? Attention is what breaks them. Now, back to the woods. The ominous message. On the fourth day of searching, officers made a final discovery. Carved crudely into the bark of a tree near the burned pile of books were 3 words. She was here. The carving was shallow but fresh. No moss, no weathering. It hadn't been there long. And that meant one terrifying possibility: whoever had taken Emily might have come back after the search began. Watching. Leaving a message. Playing a game. A hunter in the shadows. The idea that the abductor was still active, still taunting, electrified the case. Detectives now believe they were dealing with someone not only methodical, but bold. Someone who wanted investigators to know they were always one step ahead. The woods, the burned evidence, the tree carving, this wasn't just about hiding crimes. It was about control. Power. Fear. And the worst part? Emily was still missing. Alive or dead, no one knew. But the evidence suggested one thing: if she was alive, she wasn't far. Because predators don't taunt unless they're still holding the pieces. The circle tightens. The discovery in the woods had shifted the entire investigation. No longer was this seen as a one-off tragedy. Emily's disappearance was now tied to a series of vanishings spanning nearly a decade. The evidence wasn't just piling up, it was screaming a single, undeniable truth. Someone had been hunting young women near that campus for years. And if Emily's belongings were in those woods, then the predator was still out there. A city on edge. Fear wasn't just confined to the university anymore. The entire city felt it. Local businesses began closing early. Rideshare drivers refused to take passengers to certain areas after dark. Police dispatchers reported a surge in 911 calls, people convinced they were being followed, people seeing shadows where there were none. The city was unraveling under the weight of suspicion. But paranoia alone couldn't solve the case. Investigators needed something concrete. Something that pointed directly to the person behind it all. And that's when they got their first real break. The car. Detectives reviewing traffic camera footage from the night Emily vanished noticed something odd. At 11:56 p.m., just 1 block from where Emily's phone went dead, a dark-colored sedan appeared on camera. The car slowed near the intersection, then disappeared down the same road Emily had taken. Minutes later, the same car was seen speeding away in the opposite direction. Investigators froze the frame, enhanced the plate as much as possible. Partial numbers, blurred, but just enough to narrow it down. And one name popped up on the registration list. Tyler Green. Tyler again. For the 3rd time, detectives brought Tyler in. His story hadn't changed, he was in his dorm, playing games with a friend. But when confronted with the traffic footage, his face went pale. Tyler insisted he often drove around at night to clear his head. He said it was coincidence, he wasn't following Emily, he didn't even know she was walking home that late. But his explanation rang hollow. When detectives pressed, Tyler snapped. "You're wasting time. If you think I did something, charge me. Otherwise, find the real guy." He was released again, still not enough evidence to hold him. But suspicion was no longer quiet. Students whispered his name. Neighbors avoided his gaze. Tyler went from awkward classmate to campus pariah. And if he was innocent, the real predator had just been handed the perfect cover. The copycat fear. As pressure mounted, detectives began to wonder, what if this wasn't one person? The disappearances stretched back nearly a decade. Could it have been more than one abductor? A pattern picked up by someone new? A copycat imitating an older predator? Or worse, was this the work of a group? That possibility terrified everyone. Because how do you stop not one hunter, but many? A new suspect. Just as focus zeroed in on Tyler, another name emerged. A campus security guard named James Harlow. James had worked the night shift for years. Quiet, solitary, barely noticed by students. But records showed something chilling. He had been assigned to patrol near the library the night Emily vanished, and failed to log any reports between 11:30 p.m. and 12:15 a.m. When questioned, James claimed he was making rounds. But GPS data from his patrol vehicle told a different story. At 11:57 p.m., the exact time Emily's phone shut off, James's vehicle was less than 500 feet from her last known location. Cracks in the armor. James denied any involvement. He said he never saw Emily that night, that his patrol logs were incomplete because of a software glitch. But when investigators pulled his personnel file, troubling details surfaced. Complaints from female students who said he made them uncomfortable. A disciplinary note for leaving his post during a shift. Rumors, never proven, that he followed students after hours. For the first time, the investigation had a credible suspect who wasn't Tyler. And yet, just like before, there was no smoking gun. No proof tying James directly to Emily or the other victims. The family's breaking point. The back-and-forth suspects crushed Emily's family. Every day brought a new name, a new theory, a new wave of false hope. Her sister Rachel lashed out in a press conference. "They keep saying they're close, but we're still here with nothing. My sister is still gone. We don't need suspects, we need Emily back." Her father, once calm and steady, broke down in front of cameras. "I can't sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I see her out there, alone, scared. And I can't reach her." The rawness of their grief gripped the entire city. But for detectives, it was a crushing reminder of the stakes. This wasn't just about solving a mystery. It was about saving a life, if there was still one to save. Warning, let me stop here for just 1 second. If this case feels heavy, it should. Because behind every missing person's name, behind every headline, is a family like Emily's. A family drowning in questions with no answers. So if you haven't yet, hit subscribe, hit like, share this story. Not for the algorithm. For Emily. For her family. Because the more people who hear her name, the less chance this case has of slipping into silence. Now, back to the storm that was about to break wide open. The twist. Just when investigators felt cornered between Tyler and James, something shocking happened. A call came into the tip line. A woman's voice, shaken, hesitant. She claimed she had seen Emily after midnight, hours after the official timeline ended. She said she was driving home from work, passing near the woods, when she saw a young woman matching Emily's description standing on the side of the road. Disoriented. Crying. Holding one shoe in her hand. The woman said she slowed down, ready to pull over, but before she could stop, a dark sedan pulled up behind the young woman. The girl climbed inside. The car drove away. At the time, she hadn't thought much of it. She assumed it was someone helping a distressed student. But when Emily's story hit the news, her stomach dropped. She was certain it was her. The implication. If the tip was true, then Emily had been alive after the point everyone assumed she vanished. Alive, wandering, trying to find help. But instead of rescue, she may have been picked up by her abductor. And if the car was the same dark sedan from the traffic footage, then Emily hadn't just been taken. She had been hunted twice. The vanishing point. The tip about the woman on the roadside electrified the investigation. For the first time, there was hope. Hope that Emily had survived beyond those first crucial minutes. Hope that she had tried to escape, that maybe she had even fought her way free. But hope is a dangerous thing. Because sometimes it opens a door, only to slam it shut again. Chasing the lead. Detectives scrambled to verify the tip. They pulled traffic camera footage from every road near the woods. They canvassed gas stations, convenience stores, toll booths, anything that might have caught the sedan on film. And they found something. At 12:21 a.m., a camera captured a dark sedan heading south on the interstate. The same blurred plate as before. Behind the wheel, a male silhouette. And in the passenger seat, barely visible, a smaller figure. A woman. Her head against the window. The final image. Investigators froze the footage, enhanced it, studied it frame by frame. The clothing matched what Emily had been wearing. The size matched too. But the image was grainy, the face impossible to confirm. It was the last time anyone would ever see her. After that frame, the car vanished into the night. No more sightings. No more signals. Nothing. The circle of suspects. The car became the final battleground. If it was Tyler's, why couldn't they pin him to it definitively? Why was every piece of evidence just shy of enough? If it was James's, why didn't the plate match? Why wasn't there proof he owned a similar vehicle? It was like the truth hovered just out of reach, taunting investigators. And maybe that was the point. Maybe the person behind all this was meticulous, intentional, careful enough to leave traces, but never fingerprints. Always leading them close, but never letting them in. The pattern unbroken. Months passed. Searches of the woods continued, but nothing new was found. No body. No remains. No closure. Emily had joined Lena Martinez, and perhaps others, in a pattern that stretched years, maybe decades. A pattern with no resolution. And the most terrifying part? The gap between victims was shrinking. What had once been years between disappearances was now only months. Which meant, if the predator wasn't caught, someone else would vanish soon. The family's final words. On the one-year anniversary of Emily's disappearance, her family gathered at a vigil. Hundreds of students came, holding candles, singing softly, some crying openly. Emily's mother stepped to the microphone, her voice trembling but clear. To whoever took her, I want you to know you didn't just steal my daughter. You stole my sleep. You stole my smile. You stole the light from this campus. But you did not break us. We will say her name every day until the world says it with us. We will not stop. We will not let you win. The crowd erupted in applause, some chanting Emily's name. It was a moment of defiance in the face of unimaginable darkness. But even in that unity, the truth hung heavy. Emily was still gone. The vanishing point. Emily's story, like Lena's, ended not with an answer, but with a silence. And maybe that's the most haunting part of all. Because silence is a predator's weapon. It keeps families in limbo. It keeps communities afraid. It keeps the truth buried, just out of reach. But silence only wins if we let it. If Emily's story reached you, if you felt her walking those streets, if you saw her face in that grainy footage, if you imagined her standing on that roadside clutching her shoe, then don't let it fade when this video ends. Say her name. Share her story. Keep her alive in memory, because someone out there knows what happened. And the more voices that demand answers, the harder it becomes for predators to hide in the dark. Emily Carter walked home on camera, but never arrived. Her story isn't over. And neither is our responsibility to tell it.